So we were on hiatus for about a year or a little more, and a lot has happened between our last non-Twitch episode and our triumphant return in the holiday special last month. Or was it
Woo!
this
Much
month?
triumph was had.
Must triumph was that. One thing I was most excited about in getting back to Spellburn was to talk about third-party DCC and MCC stuff with some of our greatest creators in the field. So tonight I'm trying to make up for lost time with longtime MCC, DCC guys and podcast alums, Forrest and Jared Crater, plus some of the wackiest and most wonderful third-party guys out there, Dan Stevie and David Capoletti. And since we have some un-dead emails that are wandering around the basement, that's a style guide joke for some of you. We have a real zombie who will read some old undead emails from our basement. And so that is what we got tonight, and a real email zombie for you, as well as some terrific guests. I'm Judge Julian. With me is Judge Jen.
Hello.
And what's on your mind?
Um, well, don't put me on the spot like that. I am, really looking forward to things like the upcoming conventions because that's now my bailiwick. But we also had a kind of fun excursion in the past month or so. I don't know what are we allowed to talk about these days?
Gary Kahn,
Gary Con's cool. Okay. Yes,
I think.
we'll be there.
I don't know about you, but I spent all day talking to somebody about arranging rides to Gary Con, and I'm still working with my roommates figuring out who's going to sleep where in Gary Con. So,
Well, the floor is not bad as long as you're not right next to one of those doors.
I'm running 4 games, as I've been plugging incessantly on all shows that anybody will let me be on. So, I have some MCC games going if you like that kind of thing. It's a living dungeon.
How living
Right?
are we talking here?
Well, it's gonna, you can play it on day 1, and then you can come back and play it again on day 3 with the same character. And you could even level up in the middle of the dungeon if you actually buy 2 tickets and come back in the same in the next night or whatever. So, I'm gonna and I've got a notebook in which people can write their notes from day 1, and then we give it to the day 2 team and the day 3 team and the day 4 team. And it's already full of misinformation and crazy stuff from Gen Con. So yeah, so anyway, maybe that'll be fun. It's kind of a little slight experiment. But we had a good time with it at Gen Con, and now it's going to be my my thing at Gary Con this week. This year, I should say.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't jump the gun. Don't scare me like that.
What's
We've got someone in the Twitch chat asking about Murder HoboCon, and I would be remiss if I did not clarify that Brendan LaSalle was actually planning to run some games at Murder HoboCon, and that's an online one that's just on tabletop events.
Awesome. Do we have big Gen Con deadlines coming up, Jen?
Oh, we're already in them, believe it or not.
I believe it.
We're 8 months out, less than 8 months out, and man, my shoulders are as heavy as if it's like a week from now. So yeah, it's it's actually a really nice treat to be here.
You're taking time off to do Spellburn.
Darn straight.
Well, you may, if you go to visit spellburn.com, you may see that we have a new URL, or same URL, new website, a little more streamlined and modern. And this is a lot more secure, and we promise not to crash your computer or infect you with viruses from the site. That is. Our
nice
email,
segue there too.
Yeah. And our email right now is a little bit under the weather. You might get a bounce back if you email us. So we're working on that, and more to come on that. As we already mentioned, we have a bunch of undead emails. So you don't really have to worry about emailing us right now till we catch up. So that's about that, I would say.
Yeah.
I will also say I'm having a blast running my local campaign, Planet Skull, which is an amalgam of DCC, MCC, and Umerica, and we got a crawl jammer class in there somewhere. And then the guys were
neat.
like, yeah, now they're like, well, we want to play a Weird Frontiers class in there too. So I'm like, well, I guess, yeah, okay. So I guess we're gonna have some Weird Frontiers in there as well, and maybe we'll get some class alphabet and some other stuff going. So, and one of my players in there just released a new album, or he's produced a new album for his band Oak Pantheon. Yeah, get some effects on my voice there. Oak Pantheon. So go check it out. I'm gonna link it in Bandcamp if you like some metal. They've got like 3 or 4 albums out, local guys. And it's good stuff. So Scott, Sean, Oak Pantheon, we're giving you a shout out. Go check their band out. All right.
Sounds great.
Jen, are you out of gas? Are you ready for our guests? Are you chomping at the bit to see these guys?
Yeah. I mean, no offense, Julian, but it really has been forever. And if yours is the only mug I got to look at all night, we might have an issue.
I don't blame you. I honestly don't blame you. Plus, this is a reunion of sorts, obviously. So
I think they all are going to be reunion shows this year.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of seem like that. So, well, with no further ado, we're going to step away briefly, and then we will be bringing on our first 2 guests. All right. Hey, we're back with our first 2 guests, Forrest and Jared and Jared Crater. Forrest, am I saying your last name right? I never knew how to say it, even though I knew you for I've known you for over 2 decades.
You and I have known each other the longest I've known anybody who plays DCC.
We're actually brothers who were reunited, long lost kin. Yeah, we knew each other long before DCC from the World Fantasy Convention in Minneapolis. Was it 2000?
2001, I think.
2001? Yeah, that could be. So yeah, quite a while ago. We passed the 21-year mark, and our relationship has really okay. Well, I'm not going to go into that. So anyway,
that's personal.
Yeah, let's not get too far. But anyway, Forrest and Jared, you of course know him as the author of one of the old. I don't know. It feels like this is almost one of the first third-party things. It probably wasn't one of the very first, but in the heyday of third-party stuff, Beyond the Silver Scream. And of course, you also know him as one of the original podcast hosts of Glowburn, our cousin or sister podcast for MCC, Mutant Crawl Classics. And in the other corner, we've got Judge Jarrett, our alum from Spellburn and much decorated Spellburn host, who has gone on to be, I'm just going to say RPG premier editor of all things indie, and has worked on too many, I think, not that I really give a rip per se about awards that much, but
oh, I see what you're doing there. I see what you did. Okay.
I'm just saying, I think you've got more Ennies than we could actually list if we and your projects that you've been working on as editor have won I don't know, too much bling for us to carry. So
but importantly, the first one was for Spellburn.
Yeah, true enough. So well, Jared, it's great to have you back, and we're going to talk about old stuff, new stuff. I'm gonna let Forrest talk about your upcoming project that you've both been working on, because he's been whispering about it to me at conventions, and I'm super excited about it.
Well, and I've been whispering intentionally because I didn't want the title to get out too soon, because I was afraid somebody would steal it. So everybody who play tested for me, they had a strict injunction to not tell people the title of it. And
Brilliant.
so the title of the adventure that we're talking about, it's an MCC adventure. I clock it in at about 5th to 7th level, 7th being
Wow.
safe. It's tough. But all my play testers, same thing. I said 5th to 7th level is about right. And the title of it is At the Mutants of Madness. And you can see why I kept that. Now, if I find anybody else using that, I will sue you faster than Hasbro. So be careful. Let's see, where do we go? That's a point crawl. We've got some wonderful cover art. Jared's working on everything that I don't want to work on, essentially, which is everything except the writing. The writing's done. It's been play tested all the way to heck and back, and actually it's in pretty good shape. To give a little teaser, if you remember in the MCC rulebook, there is this whole notion of the radiation barrier to the north. And so in this adventure, you go beyond the radiation barrier to the north to see what's up there. So you can probably tell that I took a Lovecraftian take on this, from the title.
What?
Yeah, crazy, huh? But there is some Lovecraftian goodness in there, or badness, depending on what your taste is. So anyway, had a lot of fun writing it, a lot of fun playtesting it, and I've had many people whose names will go unmentioned because there's just too many who help playtest it. So it's yeah, I'm really excited. I think I'm more excited about this than any other role-playing project I've done. And I've done a few that were pretty fun. So
I can understand that. A heck of a way to use canon per se too.
I had to be careful with the Lovecraft stuff. Joe Goodman and I talked about that a fair amount, about, we don't want to cross the line. And I actually sent the manuscript to the one of the vice presidents at Chaosium and said, could you please take a look at this? Tell me if I'm crossing any lines I shouldn't be crossing in terms of trademarks and whatnot. And he gave the okay, and Joe gave the okay, and here we are.
So can you talk about elder gods and stuff? Are you not allowed to say, Yog Sothoth or something? Or where's that line fall now?
That's a really good question. For example, you don't want to use something like deep ones. That's verboten. You cannot use that. I don't know if the
Frogman,
name.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if the name Cthulhu is. Did I say that? If that's actually trademarked by Chaosium for game use or not. I did not use that. The main baddie actually, I took the flying polyp and I jumbled up the vowels and took out some consonants and made it sound like it was Slavic. But it's basically an amalgam of those. What do you call that when you mix all the letters up in a different order? Anyway,
Anagram?
yeah, it's an anagram, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. So
Oh, it's a bananagram then.
there you go. That's it.
I call it a parallelogram. But,
Sure.
it's all good. It's all good.
But yeah, that's you have to be careful about that. So I was very careful about it.
So
that is interesting because Cthulhu is a god too in DCC.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Joe has permission. Look, I mean, because Joe had the Cthulhu Age, right? So he might have had permission from Chaosium at that point to use it. I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
Interesting.
We'll spell it Clulu.
Yeah.
Now what's I've known your sick mind for a long time, Forrest, and I've known Jared's also not nearly as long, but for a while. So what's your creative process like working together? Or was this, I know you've been working on this a long time, so was it kind of done and then Jared came in to, scoop it up, or what, or did you guys have a lot of back and forth, and was it, describe that for me?
We've been talking about it for a long time, actually. It seems like a long time anyway.
Since mid pandemic, so in the year 2020, part 3,
somewhere in there, yeah.
Somewhere in the past 3 years. And we really got to talking about it at GaryCon last
Yes.
GaryCon last year.
Yeah, it was Gary Con. Yeah.
And that's when I was my company, Space Penguin Inc., has been toiling and boiling and bubbling in my brain for a couple of years, and finally just doing it. And Forrest was like, "Oh, hey, I've got this thing." I was like, "Cool." And I was like, "What about Beyond the Silver Screen?" He's like, "Oh yeah, let's do that too." And so yeah, I actually spent, I emailed Forrest earlier today, spent today getting the rest of that cleaned up. Did it 2023, Jared, come on. 2023 re-edit and just reconfigured some things and moved some stuff around a little bit. Matt Hildebrand was very nice and was like, "Yeah, you can't break my layout, it's fine." And I didn't. Matt, if you're watching, I didn't break it. So that's pretty cool. That one's that'll be one of our launch titles at Space Penguin. And then yeah, hoping sometime this year with Mutants, probably Q3, I think.
So the just one bit on the Beyond the Silver Screen. When I originally wrote that and published it, some of you will recall me being at GaryCon and literally selling them out of my trench coat, because I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any tables. But stapling all those things by hand, it got really tedious, and especially when you know, I sell like 20 of them at a con, and then Joe would contact me and say, "Hey, I need 50 more of these." I'm like, I don't have that many staples, Joe.
I never got that call from Joe. Oh, no, that's another story. But yeah. Hey, do you remember? You remember, Forrest? You asked me for a blurb for that.
I do
And
remember the blurb.
are you
Yeah.
keeping my blurb in the reissue? Because I'll be, you know, if
I
you have
believe
it a
it's
cooler
I-
back cover now, I'll be like, oh God.
but I believe it's still in there. I think it was you and Adam Skevich and Patricia Pulling, most importantly.
It was like I gave you a 1,000 word blurb, and theirs were all like, this is really good stuff, you should buy it. And then mine was like, Forrest Aguirre is one of the, you know, up and coming Dungeon Crawl Classics RPG, right? And blah, blah, blah,
It was hard to get that font to catch your voice.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
just
No,
kinda
I mean,
difficult,
kind
but-
of gothic and then italics, you know, type.
For the
Right.
sarcasm, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually read that. So it is on the back cover, and I was just like, that does sound like Julian.
Yeah, well, hey, that's what I.
And did
that's
Patricia
what I
Pulling
like to
not
hear.
sound like Patricia Pulling?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I was
So-
glad I was able to get a quote from her ghost.
Jared, tell us more about Space Penguin. You got these two projects. Is this going to be any particular focus, or what is this?
Games. This year there will be 1, 2, 3 DCC for one Beyond the Silver Scream, Stella Condry's Prison of the Forsaken Bear God, at the Mutants of Madness, which is MCC. There's one more DCC that someone pitched me in the last couple of days. I was like, yes, please write. There will be several Mothership third-party pamphlets. I'm still the editor-in-chief on Mothership line. That
So
big
glad
old
to hear that.
that big old beautiful box set is in the works too, by the way.
Yes.
It's getting really close. So but we'll have a bunch of third-party stuff there. We've been working with Kevin Roman Daltrey, who does Forbidden Psalm, and we're doing a skirmish miniatures game. So it's miniatures agnostic, similar to Dogstorm, which some of the watchers know and all of us here know. So it's minis agnostic. You don't have to have any certain minis. 5 model squads, use whatever terrain. The first one of those out of the box will be called Dread Knights, and it's Victorian / Gothic. You're a team of hunters, and there's werewolves and there's vampires and all kinds of other neat stuff to fight and kill. There's 2 or 3 card games coming down the line, not collectible, although I have been reliving the 90s and collectible card games. Shout out to Arcadia. I have a board game of my own design, actually, two that have been in the works for a couple of years that I'm finally taking the next step and getting those out.
Awesome.
Just a
Jeez.
little bit. I got about the next 24 months sort of loosely sketched out as far as releases, looking about 3 a quarter, I think. So two to 3 a quarter. Big eyes. Yeah, I've just been lucky enough to work with all kinds of really cool people for the last 10 years, 11 years. And I've gone to full circle working for other people in a freelance and in an hourly and a salaried situation. And now I'm just like, I just want to do this for myself. I get to take more of an editorial hand in a lot of stuff, which I really like. I get to flex my development and, design muscles. I admittedly am not a writer. I prefer the editor titles, and do all that stuff. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a quest. We'll put it that way.
I like the new feral Jarrett. Free range
Right.
Jarrett.
Free range, cage
I like
free,
it.
sustainable.
Very true.
Yep.
Nice.
And wild.
So what other, Forrest, I think you promised me a secret though. Is there a better secret coming?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
not
actually-
better, but like more secret.
Yeah,
I want the
it's-
secretest secret.
It's something Jared and I actually talked about last time we were in our little executive meetings or whatever we call those. And that is, I'm working on something, I don't want to give away too much. It's something that every person who's played D&D first, AD&D first edition, or just AD&D, will recognize, and it's been morphed for DCC and it's still in progress. I am working with another unnamed author whose name rhymes with Lyndon Brassal. And we've been working on it for a while. Yeah, I probably can't guess who that is. I'm being pretty secretive
It's a
about that.
parallelogram.
Yes, it's a telegram. So anyway, it's like I said, we're still in working on it. It's going to take us a little bit of time, but we've been working on this for, gosh, it's been a couple years now. But it's the kind of thing when it comes out, everybody's probably going to be like, duh, why did nobody else do this before? And so anyway, I'll just say it will make the judge's life a little easier and fun.
Very nice. Well, I like the sound of that.
Okay.
Is it spell booklets? The old second edition spell booklets? Is that what you did?
No,
Oh,
sorry.
The TSR cards, the 750 set.
Oh, right.
It's those. It's what those are. It's those.
I was just hoping, I hope it's a spell deck, man.
It's not that it's cool, but not spell deck cool.
Well, I'm my newest secret project is I haven't vetted this out legally yet, but Raven Cthulhu Loft Dark Trails. It'll be coming out pretty soon, and it's going to be, I think it's going to have some instant name recognition. So
Can somebody play Hot Dog Man in that game? Is my question.
you can always play Hot Dog Man suit
Okay,
in all games. So
Good.
yes, it's quite popular. So most recently I saw Chris Zank running a Temple Siege game at Gamehole Con with all different classes, and he immediately gets picked every time, of course.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
or
that's the
he
guy to
or
beat.
she,
Yep.
they, etc.
Yep.
All right. Well, kids, anything else you want to leave us with here as we start looking down the show notes and go, oh my God, we got a crowded agenda. I still have to go down to the catacombs yet.
I just want to say thanks for reaching out last week and just being like, hey, do you want to be on the show? And I was like, yeah, I haven't been on the show in forever. And good to know that you all are back. Are you going to be doing weekly, monthly, bi-monthly?
Probably monthly for now.
Nice.
Cool.
Awesome.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
that is the plan. Monthly, and that's, I think we got kind of our format as more guests are more fun. We used to kind of do the one guest thing. now that we're free of the tyranny of Jeff Goad. I mean, now that we're on Twitch and
I
things are
swear.
slightly, yeah, it's just slightly different. I think we can free it up a little bit. So yeah. Hey, well, guys, super great to see both of you. Thanks for coming on the show.
See y'all at GaryCon.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Now, to our viewers, I want to say a word of caution. We're going to go down to the catacombs and we're going to see the email zombie here. So if you have small children or people who are easily upset, you may want to lead them away from the computer because it could get, sensitive people could be traumatized by the email zombie. He's a fearsome creature. And not to mention undead, dead emails. So
I'm just glad we don't have smell-o-vision over here.
Exactly, as always. All right, well, thanks, guys. We are going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. I am the email zombie. I have been brought forth from the grave to read the undead emails of ages long past. There's like from 2021. They're ancient, moldering emails that were never loved and never given any attention by the Spellburn crew, who unceremoniously took a long hiatus. And now they are being brought back from the grave. So who better to read them than me, the email zombie? Now you'll see that even though they're email, I've got a paper here. I do only do hard copy. All right. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Old dead eyes. Yeah. Yeah. The first email here is from John Williams. Oh, an evil man. I don't think this is in regards to episode 104, where the band played 10th Level Adventure with Brendan LaSalle. That was like back in 1927, so this is an old email. John Williams writes, I don't think any other spells that a cleric can cast would anger a god by trying to cast it again a second time. I just consider casting Bless and then casting a second Bless and maybe casting a third Bless on yourself to be the DCC equivalent of Dragon Ball Z powering up for a while to release the big attack. The anger of your god is expressed as a mechanic when you get disapproval for failing to cast spells. It shouldn't need to be expressed through any other mechanics, except maybe by the influencing the quest of redemption the cleric might need to do to get rid of the disapproval. There's more, John Williams. But even saying Dragon Ball Z in reference to DCC is a fail. Back to the grave with you. Casting Bless numerous times on a blessed spell and a blessed on a blessed, triple blessed spell. No, the email zombie does not allow this. That's John's email. Thank you for writing, John. Our next undead email is from Reese Boston in regards to our review of his product, Trespassers of the Full Moon Tower, in episode 113. This has been adjusted for length because it's quite long. He writes, thank you for all the kind words about our little adventure. I'm glad you enjoyed the art. My wife and I made all of it. She is the better artist between us. I had to coach her to make them look worse for the amateur style we wanted. I really appreciate the feedback
including the criticism, which was all fairly taken, and I slapped myself in the forehead that we didn't come up with Judge Carmen's idea. That was the Carmen Vance episode number 113. The point about the portrayal of women was fairly taken. You don't know how much I fussed over the drawings of the witch worrying if they were overly sexy. My wife joked the original mosaic looked more like a Kardashian than a witch goddess, and I'm glad she did. The original trek through the woods rolling dice 24 times was originally just a single DC 25. That's how Andrew wrote it, and I changed it since there's no other way in BX. I was converting it to BX, but I should have trusted my code. Don't make people roll 20 times, not even 10 times. Sadly, we didn't have Druna, the silver goddess, ready for your review, but I can now proudly say she is ready. She is available for free or pay what you want on Drive-Thru-RPG. Yes, I will say that I looked into worshiping Drilva, the silver goddess of the moon. There is a product by that name on Drive-Thru-RPG, and I will tell the fleshlings above to link it in the show notes. The rest of the email is a bunch of links and gobbledygook. I am the email zombie. Go back to the land of the living now.
Well, that was terrifying.
Why do you take me to these places? They are way too dark.
I told you it was a haunted house already, and you said you were fine with it. I mean,
I
know,
didn't know we were talking old sweaters and stuff, man. That's way too creepy.
Joey Royale has stuff like that all the time, and I'm just trying to keep up, I mean, Joey drives, I gotta go and find, he has Cousin Marty, I gotta go find characters too, that's all.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, we are back with our good friends, Mr. Stevie and Mr. Capoletti. So very happy, and thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Happy to
Thank
be
you
here.
for so long we have listened. Now we can speak.
Yes.
Yeah, I swear to God, Dan, you've been somebody who's been in my mind to have in Spellburn for a long time, and I've talked about Bronx Beast on there before, at least once or twice.
Oh yes.
Or 5 times.
But or 5 times, and then as I was thinking about the show, I was thinking like, did I actually have Dan on Spellburn already? Because there's been so many of them, and then I was like,
thought we had, yeah. Wow.
I just, incessantly wrote you all emails and, made you read them. That's all. It's like I was there in a fashion.
So yes, Dan, thank you for being here. And David Capoletti, I don't know that we've ever met virtually or in person,
No.
but I've always wanted to get you on here. First, I was already excited about the class alphabet, and now you have done Mr. Moon Mutants, which is like one of my favorite things in a long time.
Oh gosh, thank you.
So if I'm raving about that too much, just just tell me to dial it back a little bit. It's okay. You guys don't have necessarily anything to do with each other except the fact that you're both D names, so that's cool. And well, that's a thing with us, with the J's and the D's and so on. And then, but I also I think you've got a pretty cool third party thing going here in both cases. So Dan, I want you to start out and talk a little about Bronx Beast. And then I did a big review of all my Island of Lost Soul stuff, which is actually, kind of like, like Bronx Beast, but at kind of a right angle, right? So it's a different take on the same kind of rules, right?
Certainly a riff on it. Yeah. So yes, I was producer of the Bronx Beast zine, of which there is a single volume currently of all the rules, which is mostly just character generation and some gameplay rules. The original view of the vision, I guess, for the game was like an 80s based campaign, very much a la a certain Ninja Turtles cartoon that some of us may have grown up watching, or read the comics, what have you, trying to catch that vibe. You know, a lot of ninjas, a lot of weird alien science, a lot of hijinks, and of course, mutant animals on every street corner, what have you. From there, I have also am a great enthusiast of the Island of Dr. Moreau films, the terrible, terrible films, and the original novel and the weird spin-off things and by Brian Aldiss and what have you. All that weird culture around it, seemed like a really great ground for a little sandbox campaign for me. So you basically get to play the role of one of these miserable, horrible animals, you know, stuck on this island. It's kind of like a pressure cooker where there's these different factions, and there is a godlike human figure that you know as father, but the readers would know as Dr. Moreau, that is also on the island, that is, you know, in every way a godlike figure to you. And you know, and all sorts of things can go wrong. You know, the island itself is a volcano. Like, there's all sorts of things, all kinds of hijinks, you know, all sorts of things you can get in trouble with. And eventually, it's one of those sandboxes that I think is basically doomed to explode if it's played right. So at the end, you know, the island is going to sink into the ocean, or the volcano will erupt, or some, you know, biovirus will be released and will annihilate everything on the island. And maybe your characters are lucky enough to be on a dugout canoe, you know, offshore when it happens. Maybe we'll see. So yes, but a fun little romp. The idea is, I think I've got 2 zines that are just kind of a campaign book idea, where it just gives you the idea, the meat and potatoes of what's going on the island, and then I have 2 full adventures as well.
I think, and you kind of need Bronx Beasts to play the island, right? Because
Yeah, we kind of use those rules that we for the character generation and
Yeah.
gameplay rules there. Yeah.
I think that is, in fact, it kind of feeds into the class alphabet stuff, which is so nutty, because the Bronx, there's been a lot of takes on DCC classes and doing DCC, you know, compatible classes for stuff. But I think the Bronx Beast stuff is the craziest of the bunch, you know, making anthropomorphic animals with rules for even the tiniest of animals or the largest of animals. It's almost Tunnels and Trolls-y in its weird size rules. And it's just, and then you've got like Spellburn, and you've there's a couple other crazy animal mechanics in there. Anyway, it's just one of my favorite rule sets. It's completely nuts. And everybody, if you like DCC and you're interested in like doing your own thing for DCC, you should check out Bronx Beast, because it kind of tears down the, you know, barriers of what you could really, it doesn't have to be D&D based. It doesn't even have to be human. It doesn't even, you know, I mean, it's like, and they're not just like, oh, I'm a mouse person with chainmail and a sword. Like, no, it's not like that. It's like, you are a freaking, you could be anyway, enough said.
I have 2 questions for you, Dan.
Sure. I may have answers.
First, when do we get more?
I owe some Kickstarter backers some more volumes. So I am currently, the next volume that will be coming out will be a standalone adventure called The Big Bop Back to Brooklyn. A lot of B's there. It is inspired by the novel and the film known as The Warriors, but it's kind of like, what if we had that little scenario, but instead of all the gangs being human, we'll just make them all animals and turn that on its head. It's basically just a one-shot adventure. It's fairly low level. There's a bunch of gang mechanics in it. Just kind of a fun one-shot romp. That's the next one coming out. I've got a bunch of artwork already done for it. It is in the layout stages now. And then after that, I will be working on the next 4 volumes of Bronx Beast, which will be a campaign setting, again, set in the 80s, chock full of ninjas and weird, you know, commandos and weird science and all sorts of fun stuff, trying to, as best I can, to evoke that golden era of palladiumness and other strangeness.
Wow. Riffs? Can we have riffs?
I dropped out of the Palladium.
love
I
it.
fell off the bandwagon at Riffs, so
Yeah.
for Palladium. So,
My second question would be, please tell us about the book racks behind you.
inspired by one known as Joseph Goodman, who has a love for for book racks. We had a local used bookstore that was downsizing. They didn't close at least, but they downsized. But they sold some of their spinners, and so I grabbed the spinners, and so I've got a fine spinner rack of all quality DCC material
Oh,
and a bunch of
man.
Appendix N goodness over here. And I can of course thank the DCC community for even turning me on to Appendix N. That's been quite a fun journey. I'd heard of it in my gaming prior, but I wasn't, I'd never really delved into it other than an accidental discovery of H.P. Lovecraft when I was a kid. But other than that, I've since then gone through it all, or not all of it, a lot of it.
Accidental.
And yeah, well, and have been enjoying it thoroughly. And it's great to actually have read the novels when the product release comes out for Goodman Games. So I was like, oh, Dying Earth, yeah, I've been there and read that, and that's great stuff. I can't wait. So yeah, been a lot of fun to explore that and see the origins of some of the fantasy aspects and sci-fi aspects of the games and the origins of that, which I would have never really probably even delved into had it not been for the DCC community. So thank you everybody who turned me onto those books.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was gonna say you're welcome, but it wasn't really me. So yeah, I add my thanks, although I knew a lot of them, but I never went super deep. And anyway, yeah, I got a lot deeper. So yeah.
Excellent.
Hey, let's talk. Speaking of crazy classes, let's talk to Mr. Capoletti. Let's talk about this crazy DCC class alphabet project. This was a long time in the making.
Mhm.
At least it felt like it, because I did mine a billion years ago. I went over this book yesterday, and I was having a blast. It is so silly and so much fun. I didn't even know that I didn't either know or remember that Jarrett Crater had snuck in an editor monster class
It is a
class
monster.
into the book. And so that was
Sweet.
and I think if I recall, maybe just because 25 was the number of rows in your table, you made the editor was the only class not eligible for moon mutants. See, you
I-
didn't
I'm
you thought-
sorry, but I love the class. I just can't let it be played. It's too destructive.
you know, you thought that I didn't see
I
those
can
little
understand that.
subtle things, but I'm totally on. Anyway, talk about the class alphabet and what that was like putting it together. It looks like it was a blast.
It was a blast. You remember Google Plus, the old social networking platform. It folded, but it used to have a great DCC community for third-party publishers. I believe the Gong Farmers Almanac started there, and I wanted to do a group collaborative project. I reached out to you, I reached out to a bunch of other creators, and we all just pooled our resources artistically and creatively. And there were no limits. We were each given a letter, and the only directive was to make something that would sound fun to play. Even the editor is, highly destructive as it is very fun to play conceptually.
That's a con game class, probably.
Yeah, that's for a one shot.
What did Wayne write? I was
Here we
looking at one yesterday, and I was like, man, this is the coolest one. And it was by Wayne Snyder. And then I remembered that my Goblin Gang class, I took part of it from Wayne Snyder. So I'm like, he really should get like 1.5 credits in there, probably.
I think
But
intelligent weapon class. I think
intelligent weapon class. It's
Yeah.
so freaking cool. It is excellent. Yeah, and it has rules for your thrall that bears you. It is so Michael Moorcock / Blue Oyster Cult. I can't even believe it.
so.
Yeah, that is an excellent one.
Yeah.
What highlight one or two more for me from that book?
Okay. I like John Wilson's Quantum Wanderer, Quantum Favorite, kind of a Doctor Who class. I liked the Shadow Manipulator, the Ubiquarian.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, every
that one.
class is so cool. I can't think of one that's not cool. The Black Cat and the Knave, I think, are the most complex, but I think also have the most dimensionality. Like you could play them in so many different ways.
And now, how many people did you get for this? Like 25, or were some of them your own creations?
I think I did the Ogre class, so I did letter O. Some of the classes were collaborative in themselves, like the Black Cat, I think originally had like 15 creators connected to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, there are a lot of creators listed,
Jeez.
including me, and I have no memory of doing, that might have been a late night at Gary Con or something like, I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
hard to pin down the exact number. And unfortunately, since that platform folded, I haven't been able to keep up with one or two of the creators.
Mhm.
I was only able to reach out to them through that platform,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
their work was still published. And I don't know, I'd love to do something like that again. It was just a great experience, great project.
Yeah. Well, it's a great book. If you like wacky stuff, if you'd like to play a hot dog man suit, then you should check out DCC Class Alphabet, because it's got like 26 of those or 25 of those or whatever. So enough said about that. We got to talk about Moon Mutants, which
Yeah, we do. There's like 6.
there's 6 of them now.
Jeez.
I originally fell in love with the first 4, but I got the last 2, and obviously you call out that it's a riff on an homage to, America's Survival Guide and so on. So I can, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve already. I don't have to ask you about that, but tell me more about how this kind of sprung out of your brain.
Okay, well, I mean, it all started with crawling under a broken moon. Reed St. Filippo published the scene. I think there were 18 issues altogether before it went to hardcover. Yeah, Dan knows what's up. But it has a bunch of other source books as well, like the Road Atlas. There's the Twisted Menagerie Manual, bunch of adventures too. After the facts, there's a Psionics handbook.
Oh yeah, some Forrest and Jared guy wrote part of that, I believe, and has some adventures. Yeah. Anyway, enough said.
But it's a huge. It's crazy how huge America is. But I met Reed at Gen Con, I think in 2017. I approached him with some of my ideas, and I was running Umerica games that year. He liked my ideas. He wanted to see something more, I guess, crystallized or fleshed out. And I just kind of let the ideas ruminate. Most of the ideas were about a alternate timeline set in the future of Umerica, about 6 centuries, when the pieces of the broken moon have come back together to form a living superorganism, a moon that's a host to its own dwellers and monsters, technology, magic, ecosystems. And I just started putting it together during the pandemic, and I released 6 issues last year. Here's 5 of them.
Yeah.
Seal of these, but it has
Nice.
classes, vehicles, monsters, an adventure, fully playable adventure in each issue.
Yeah.
There's more stuff too. Just it's full of playable content. I wanted each issue to be just stuffed with content you could instantly play with out of the book. So
I love how you put an adventure in each issue, because then you're like, by the time you're on like 4 or 5 or whatever, you're like, I got 4 adventures out there, and they have plenty of stuff. I think some of them are kind of crawly, some of them are a little more sandbox-ish, a little more locales and stuff. But no, I mean that's great stuff. No, it's kind of, it's crawling under a mended moon it's crawling on a mended moon. Could have been.
I like it.
But you've got, I was thinking as I was reading your guys' stuff, I was thinking like you could use a lot of this stuff. You could use most of that stuff in a slightly weirder MCC game.
Oh, yeah.
And especially I was thinking, Dan, the Island of Lost Souls stuff could easily be ported into an MCC game, right? You could even have
I suppose I failed to mention the fact that I have been gaming weekly with Reed, playing Umerica with him. and we have we have been doing some fun things where Mark Plord is also in that crew, and he's
Oh,
been doing
geez.
a bunch of Umerica Down Under is what he's referring to it as an homage to Mutants Down Under, which was a splat book for the TMNT and other Strange Myths role-playing
Nice.
game from the 80s. And so he's been riffing on that, and it's actually we've been using the Bronx Beast rules for character generation as well as adding classes, Umerica classes to it, and it's worked really well. It's been a blast, and I keep encouraging him to say we should do a zine of this sometime, but we'll see if it comes to light or not. But
I think on the same tip, it's slightly different, but really like the Moon Mutants, you can use it for America. You can use that. There's so much background stuff there. There's just a couple random tables in everyone. There's monsters you could port into any MCC or DCC game that can be a little gonzo. I mean, or even fairly straight. There's just, or you could take those adventures and use them for MCC or America or whatever. I mean, so I love that Moon Mutants, that thing. I love that it is so, versatile is the word I'm trying to come up with, and that you could do so much with it. You could really just, even if you never ran a quote unquote campaign or use the Moon Mutants class or the Pharaoh Druid, you've got like a new class in every issue or close to every issue too, right?
Yeah, there's a new class in every issue. If they have spells, if they're a spellcaster class, they're accompanied with unique spells. So far, there have been 2 spellcasters, 2 combat-focused classes, and 2 sort of like toolbox classes. I want to keep up that trend of sort of mixing it up a little bit. The next issue will be coming out fairly soon, and I want it to be followed with 8 and 9 shortly after that too. I want to do them in sets of 3.
nice.
Oh,
And you're
that's a
a
good
double, you're a double threat because you're doing your own art for a lot of this stuff too, right?
Yeah, and I must admit shamelessly, I am recycling some of my old art or abandoned art or unfinished art, even some stuff back from
why
my
not, man? What's to be
why not?
ashamed of on that? Yeah.
Yeah.
The secret is to mirror it so it's backwards, and then no one can
Yeah.
ever tell.
Oh, only if it's been published before, though. If it's forgotten or just abandoned art, like you mentioned, then who's gonna know? It's still yours. Okay, well, you will. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but during the pandemic and all that, Brendan used to run a show here. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday evening or afternoon. 1000 Insane Worlds.
Oh yeah.
And the whole gist of it would be to take a full setting like that where you could create classes within it and run one adventure set in this world with those characters. And it was such a huge community service, I think. And I would love to see, Dan, I'm not sure if he did one with Bronx Beast. He may have, but I don't remember Moon Mutants being on there, and I would love for it to make it there.
Nice.
So Jen, when is your first 1000 Insane Worlds coming along? I can't believe you're volunteering to run that, but I'm pretty stoked.
I'm not.
I know I'm going to be on the invite list.
Thing. I'm already on Twitch a few hours a month. I'm good. Although I would love to play a game. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind the idea of starting a game somewhere and then just rolling a die to see what the next locale is going to be. And maybe one player forfeits their character, forfeits bringing their character into that world in favor of something from this particular setting. And then it would end up kind of like the crazy little mishmash world that you've got with your game, Julian. But there would be some quote unquote structure for it.
My game was so deadly, and then I got all wussed out in the last weekend, and I only killed one. Oh gosh. Oh, it's so disappointing.
You got wussed out?
Yeah, and then I could only I killed one guy and they recovered the body. I didn't even want to talk about it. It's just I'm a little traumatized still. But yeah, Guys, it's awesome to have you guys here, David and Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Dan,
absolutely.
I've waited so long to have you on Spellburn that I almost thought you had been already. And David, I'm glad I waited because Moon Mutants is what I've been waiting for. Now, my last question is, I think there are, believe it or not, I think there are some people, like America is popular enough that there are like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 diehards out there that are like, I only use the zines. Everything else is crap. So like, are you going to do like a moon survival guide and go corporate on us? And then you can have,
Heartbound, yep.
yeah. And then you can have like the hipster, like Moon Mutant zine guys who are like, no, man, I only use the originals. I put on my vinyl and then I listen to, and then I play the original Moon Mutants. Or are you going to do the big collection thing?
I haven't thought that far ahead, but I like where your head's at. I like the corporate ethos you're building here.
Corporate sellout step. Yeah.
Hey,
Sellout.
I think Reed is like, he's making America a thing. And then when people go back to the zines and decide that they're the cooler thing, he's probably got like 2 closets full of them that he can just dump on eBay for $1 billion or something. So,
Scheme.
and
So bad.
yeah. Well, guys, it's been great to have you. Any parting shots, future plans, anything else you want to talk about?
Mm.
I've spilled
Nope.
all my beans. Just keep it weird. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, right.
Keep it
All
weird.
right.
And pick up the Valentine's Day issue. It'll be out before we have our next show.
Woohoo.
Not issue, adventure.
Oh yes.
All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you soon and we'll be right back. All right. Thank you for sticking with us for an hour. We appreciate you guys. I heard Loot the Body was out there. If you guys are still there, that is super cool. I love your stuff and very cool if you guys were hanging out on Spellburn with us.
And thank you.
Yeah,
We appreciate
absolutely.
you.
And so I hope you enjoyed Spellburn and our new format. I'd love to get your feedback, but I made sure you couldn't email us. Haha. So I don't know. My email's out there. If you ask Matt Robertson or somebody, they'll just give it to you. So if anybody really wants to get in touch with us, you know how to reach Jen on the socials or send me a telegram or a carrier pigeon or something like
Morse
that.
code. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
So we're back to monthly. Our next show is going to be, sometime in the later part of February. And do you have a little trailer? Do you have a cue up the trailer?
The trailer, we open on a scene of a quiet mountainous hill with woods and a cabin, perhaps?
Sounds intriguing.
Cabin or house, perhaps?
Sounds idyllic. Sounds idyllic and wildernessy.
I'm a big fan of old nursery rhymes. It could be the house that Jack built, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the house that Jack built. Is that a
I know.
clue? Is that a clue?
I don't know, Steve. You should go find your little clue pad and follow the tracks.
All right. Well, I think our next episode, what she is maybe trying to tell us is that we have a next episode that will be about a very big Kickstarter we've been working on for a long time. And one of our stretch goals and or rewards and that kind of stuff. We had a great, well, anyway, more next time. But yes, it sounds like that kind of theme. And we appreciate you guys from being here. I'm Judge Julian.
I'm Judge Jen.
Yeah. We're
Like,
out. And
pointing doesn't work.
pointing doesn't. Hey, this is a podcast. We're on video. This is not a podcasting. All right, game on, guys.
Have a great night.